Welcome to another episode of Knowing You Being You. Today I am joined by Jennifer Church, who is a truth titan, consciousness mender and teacher of metaphysical teachers, and I'm so thrilled that she's here. And she's going to talk us through some metaphysical wonders and shift our perspective on a few things, or quite a few things I expect. So welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Oh, and thank you so much for having me, Polly. I am such a big fan of you and what you offer that it's an honor for me to be here with you.
Well, it's an honor for me to have you here. So there you go. Before we start, it would be really interesting for those people who don't know you to tell them a little bit about your background, of where you've come from and how you got to what you're doing now.
So I'm going to address the truth titan first because it's a natural and innate with me, because I have so much Sagittarius in my chart. And that might seem like a very ungrounded thing to say, but that's part of my makeup. It's part of who I am. And Archangel Michael, as I like to call him, actually gave me that name for a radio show that I was doing, where the host insisted I have a name, like a handle. And so Archangel Michael said, well, you're a Titan. Well, meanwhile, I'm very short. And I was like, okay. And he said, you're the truth Titan. And that's it. So that's how that name came to birth. And it just represents, it's not about that I'm the holder of truth, right? It's about that I can sense, it's like the truth of something. And when it's not really true, and the truth is about wholeness and completion, right? It's about everybody seeing themselves that way and seeing themselves as equal. That's the truth that's coming through.
Excellent.
Yeah. So and if the other parts are that I started out with a holistic healing practice as a Iyengar yoga teacher. I became a massage therapist so I could learn and understand the body more. Actually, I went to massage schools to learn anatomy. And then I went to acupuncture school. So I have all of that under my belt. But as I went through my own journey with this practice and working with clients, my goal and my intention was to be completely focused on the person in the session, and not to think about like, oh, I have to go to the store later, and oh my God, why did that person say that? I didn't want to be in that mental space. So I completely focused. And what happened was, as I was working, I started to be able to sense things beyond the physical, the metaphysical. And I was paying attention, and I was asking questions about it. So I didn't just brush it away because it wasn't part of the session. I was curious. About it. So I asked a question, like, all of a sudden I would taste meatballs in my mouth like that. I was like, why am I tasting meatballs? So I would ask the person, are you making meatballs, or is there someone that you know that makes really good meatballs? And then be like, oh, my grandmother, or whatever, my mom, my aunt. Well, it turns out that person had passed. And so that was the signal for them. That was how they were getting to me, of course, through food, that they were there. They would change the taste in my mouth, or a smell, or then even thoughts or names or visions. And so I would just ask without creating a story. I leave it open-ended, and then this way the information would flood in, so I wouldn't restrict what was the way the channel was coming in either. So that's my background.
Yes. So it's very much coming from a very physical point of view, that we are here in a physical reality, and yet we aren't just carbon.
No, we're not just carbon. And then all that led me into becoming a certified soul language practitioner, because it was natural and innate for me to be able to sense the intangible. But what I noticed was that a lot of people who are on the same path were connecting to the intangible without being connected to themselves. And that's why it's really 20 years of practice working on people's bodies, but then like working on the mental, the emotional, and spiritual. That's how that evolved. I wanted to be able to offer something to people so they could have a conscious connection with themselves, a tangible connection with something beyond their physical, so that they could help themselves in the physical.
I've got to wrap my head around
I know.
all of those things. So it's yes, but that recognition that we are way more than our physicality, and yet in order to be more than our physicality, we have to be very connected to this vehicle that we are all living in, which is, you know, very consistent with a lot of the messages that we've been, you know, had through the series, is the importance of being fully connected into your body. So what does it mean to you then to consciously connect what's out there, as we think of it, perhaps, although it isn't out there? I know you're going to say that. It's to within who we are physically.
What it means to me is that there's a way in which you're connecting, meaning, and it's not like step 1, do this, step 2, do this. There is a direction and definition and purpose to your connection. How you define it, how you direct it, and how you give it purpose is unique to each person. But if you are running out of your physical body all the time, or avoiding it, or not wanting to feel things that are happening in here, it's very difficult, right, to create this conscious connection that I would say to things that you would perceive as outside of yourself. Because the truth is, everything that's outside exists inside, because we are reflections of the divine. So having a conscious connection means that your consciousness is structured in a specific way. So a lot of people structure their consciousness in a way with an overarching theme of I'm not enough. So their entire consciousness is structured that way. If it's structured that way, then when they go out to connect, that is the definition of their connection. I'm not enough.
Which is, so what you're really talking about here is, I think we've sort of perhaps tinkered around the edges of it with mindset work, because that's actually retraining our mental body to think differently. But what you're saying is that our consciousness is our entire physical, emotional, spiritual, mental bodies, and it's all affected.
It's all affected. You can't just fix one. Like you can't just change your mindset and then expect it to. It could affect every other level, right? But it unless you are consciously connecting into those pieces, then it's not going to anchor there. And anchoring means that you have a structure in which it can anchor into. We are structured, right, in a body. Our soul is structured in a body right now. People don't understand that this is a very key component, because when you leave your body, you're leaving your body, your energy is leaving, right? When the energy leaves, it still maintains structures. So if you've created a lifetime of a thought process, a very judgmental thought consciousness, let's say, then when you leave your body, that structure of judgment is still in your energy field. Because the only way to create structure in your energy field is to be in a physical body. You can't do it once you get outside the body. So people aren't understanding how important it is to revere this physical as equal to the metaphysical, and that you have to be on the balance point in order to be able to restructure or even change your mindset.
That's a pretty big concept to take on board, isn't it?
It's a very big concept, and it took me a long time to understand that I was talking these bigger concepts and trying to help people understand. So part of my practice, right, my 20-year practice working with people, was being able to explain to them clearly what I was perceiving in a way that they could take it in. So if you look at it mechanically, simply mechanically, you're in a structure. That structure is symbolic. It means something. you've chosen to come into a specific structure. And some people look alike, but we're all structured uniquely, right?
Yep.
So it's important to recognize that and people don't understand this, your thoughts create structures. They create thought forms. So if you're always fearful, you're going to create a lot of fear thought forms that are going to structure your consciousness, and your structure of consciousness that exists, that is how the world is going to engage with you. Because that's how you're asking the world to meet you.
So everything that you're talking about here is actually taking what we might be aware of on a basic level, things like law of attraction, mindset work, the things that are very common out there. You're taking that to the next dimension of understanding, because it is far more, because those things are actually, would it be fair to say, those things are structured within our existing consciousness, whereas our consciousness is actually capable of expanding vastly beyond what we can even believe at the moment.
Yes. And so part of the key to that is creating actual energetic structures, or tuning into the energetic structures that you know that you have already, and expanding them. But what's really important about doing that is that if your mind is holding on to, let's say, the chakra system in a specific way, defining it in a way that you've learned, someone taught you, or you read in a book, then you're only going to receive that. So instead of saying, show me what you are, show me what you offer my system, and just be there and witness. And part of it is your mind will like to come in and define. And if you have a lot of thought forms, you're going to be challenged a lot by those thought forms you've already created. So it's like a game plan of like dissolving your thought forms. And that takes a bit of bravery, because those thought forms are attached to our identity. We identify ourselves by them. And so we have to be willing to strip away certain things that we hold on to about ourselves, of our identity, and then go into this unknown. For me, it's like, I want people to become high teachers of the unknown. It just, to me, that feels like you have to be brave enough to go there, and you have to be brave enough to look at yourself, and you have to be brave enough to say, oh, wait, that's not me. Let me strip that away. And then go into these energetic spaces, these structures that we know we have, or maybe allow your system to show you energetic structures that you don't know you have, and see what they are. But not allowing your mind to come in and say, oh, that's what this is. Oh, okay, it's this. It's red, it's red, it's red. Then it's just red, instead of it being able to be green.
Yeah,
or beyond green.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the reasons that I deliberately don't research anything, until I've experienced it, because otherwise I'm bringing that into it. So, for example, I know the basic concept of the chakras, the color structure, but actually also know that that's not the color that mine are.
No. That's the thing. And so, you have to let go of what you know. And also, this is the tough one, right? This is a big thought form to break through. We feel that we're valued only by what we know, how much we know about something. Well, I can tell you, I still remember I had a very influential college professor who came in the first day and wrote his name on the board and put PhD after it. And he looked at us and he said, you know what PhD means? Piled high and deep. Shit, basically. So he knew, right, that there was more beyond that. Yeah. And so for me, he was a perfect teacher for me, because he was open to what was beyond that, and he didn't take that seriously. And so you can see there are a lot of people that are locked into like information is the only value. What you know is the only value. And if you are stuck in your ego that way, You can't co-create. You can't really be in the, like what I call the command seat of co-creation. You just can't, because you're stuck in what you know. You're not allowing yourself to be restructured into something that's more open as far as consciousness is concerned. Your container, you can't open the lid, you can't open the jar.
No, you can't. And it's yeah, because I always say that your perceptions, the way that you respond is far more valuable, and more valuable for you to understand than it is the knowledge that you have, because it's the journey you've been on, the things that you've experienced that are so important to actually your unique individual way of looking at things. But then there's another level to it, which is what you're talking about, which is actually having the courage to dissolve some of that and say, this doesn't have to be part of me. This is not how I have to identify myself. And if I strip that away, then there's massive, limitless possibility in front of me.
And this is where devotion comes in, because I want to talk about the concept of devotion, because I started the devotion school. And you think devotion is not really a name for a school. But what I witnessed in working with people, I saw people create cancer at the same age that a parent had cancer, because they were so afraid, and because they said they identified so much with their parent that created the same disease process, the same exact disease process. Or I've had clients who got divorced at the same, like separated from their husband at the same month, same year, same age as their parent, because they were so. And when I say identified, it doesn't mean that you're like, oh, I'm just like my mother. You could be resistant to being like your mother so much so that you're still participating and identifying with that.
Yeah.
So either way, it's the same end of it's a polarization. So if you're either really resistant to being like your parents, or not having a relationship like your parents had, or if you're identifying with how they were, it's still the same. So breaking out of that is really important.
Yeah, this is something that dawned on me a couple of months ago when I realized that there was a story behind the story behind the story, and that my resistance and my rebellion against one of my stories was actually where was a front for the fact that I was still buying into exactly this. I was still buying into that energy of that story by trying to rebel against it. So I get that. I understand where you're coming from with it.
Yeah, so it was interesting to witness. It's like I compiled all this information and all these observations, and now it's time for people to really understand that they could be more than what they think they are, and more than what they know. And I want people to do that, because I want to be able to see their view, their unique expression, but not bogged down by what's not truth.
So, yes, and that's in itself, the word truth is a problem for our society, because we have a very narrow definition of what truth is.
We do.
So what's your definition of truth, do you think? Is it just the integrity with the soul?
It is, for me, it is integrity. It's really, are you in that vibration of integrity with what you came here to do, who you came here to be? Do you create that? Do you ring like a bell? And is that bell clear? There's like when someone is really on point, I would say, or in their channel that they came here to be in, and they're really in that vibration, to me, it's like the most beautiful music.
Yeah.
It creates this, you can feel it, you know it. The other thing I recognize is that when people my reaction, right, or my response to when people are off point, right, or off the mark, or not in integrity, it's not an integrity with my level of integrity. It's this integration, right? You've integrated these consciousnesses that say you're not whole and complete. You've integrated at least a great percentage of them.
Yeah.
And then when someone is not that, and I can feel that what they're co-creating is out of a deficiency, it hits my system in a way that doesn't feel good. Meaning my whole system, my whole body reacts, and it reacts in specific ways to it. Meaning like, it's like there's a glare. I can't look at the person. There's a bit of a glare. Or I'll just feel my whole body go, ooh, like, ooh, it just doesn't feel good. And to me, it's like, it's not for me to run up to them and say, hey, I can help you. Ring like truth into the world, right? But that's not my job. It's for them to recognize that they're not in that. It's like people need to understand that truth is not an absolute. Truth is it's like your recognition of that you're one in the oneness, you're a piece of source, but you're a piece of source that came in for something unique. And when you're not doing your unique thing, people can feel it. Even if they don't realize they can feel it. They may have a reaction to you, like, I don't want to work with that person. Ew. Whatever it is, however their reaction is, like, or they'll have a judgment.
Yeah.
And whatever judgment they have, most likely, of that person is something they need to work on too. So that's where they're in resonance. Yes,
because it's the thing that it vibrates with. It rings that bell that says, I'm not doing that. I can see you're not doing it. Because that's the thing, isn't it? We can see it in other people so much more easily than we can see it in ourselves.
Yes. And it took a long time for me to understand why I was like, why am I having these reactions to people? And then also to reflect back on myself. I need to work there. I need to look at that. I need to look at that for myself, because the other part I understand is that we're all in a resonance. So we're in resonant relationships with one another. So when you come together to co-create or collaborate with another person, you're co-creating where you're in resonance, and hopefully you're in resonance in a way that you're both in your own unique vibration, and then creating that unique vibration of the co-creation together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that has to be, and that has to be clear of a whole load of other clutter that comes in, mental and other problems that we've created for ourselves, because otherwise it's not, again, that's also out of integrity then, because it's not crystal clear.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you mentioned briefly was soul language, which is, I think, is getting to be more known now. But certainly when I say to people, when I have my soul language done, they go, what's a soul language? So then I have to try and explain it. So I think, but it has to be said that the soul language is one of those tools that really just lets you just open up the vista, if you like. Just as, it's one of those things. So I mean, certainly for me, because having my personal soul languages done was like, yeah, it's like, and that went on for quite some time before I'd managed to integrate it, and then having my business ones done as well, and just going, aha. So it was really clarifying. So I think it would be worth sort of explaining what the soul languages are.
Yeah. Well, I didn't create soul language, right? Jennifer Urezio is the creator of soul language. But once I had my soul languages identified, I knew I wanted to be a practitioner, because I knew this was a tool that people could use to really connect consciously, which is what I was realizing people weren't doing. Now, soul language was born from Jennifer Urezio and her connection with source. So there are, it's broken down into 3 components. So it's not just one language, right? And I'm just, before I go into the components, I'm going to say it's a language. So it's not an archetype, because it's a living, breathing paradigm. So the languages will shift, the definition of them will shift and change as the soul language practitioners witness that change within the language. So it can reflect how humanity is shifting and changing. And so there are the 3 components are the axiom of quest, which is your mission, why you came here, why we're here. A lot of people struggle with their purpose. They want to know why they're here. And so even if you were, so let's say I'm a relationship coach, right? And let's say I have the soul language that I have for mission, which is negotiator. The way I negotiate is going to be different than the way someone else does. And whatever negotiating is about, creating new agreements with and divine love, right? So you're creating new agreements and new deals, and you're seeing choice, right? The choices, and you're seeing what those 10 steps out, what that choice will bring in, or maybe even beyond 10 steps, depending on how you're opening your consciousness. So the way that they express that is going to be different, but it gives them the channel through which they're expressing. And it helps understand why you might be, I would say, like creating roadblocks for yourself, or why you're co-creating out of, like, I just call it a deficient place. Like I'm trying to fill a hole in myself somewhere, instead of creating from a place of wholeness and completeness. Then they have the axiom of translation, which is the fuel for your mission. It's how you're known here. So you're more known for your translation than you are for the mission. And I tend to think that that's, for me, that's a very pivotal language to identify for people, because it's what's driving you. It's the how. It's how you co-create. And it's not about, you want to co-create consciously with the how, and not try to like sit there and go, well, how is this going to happen? How is this going to happen? You just consciously co-create with the energy of how, and it shows up.
Yes.
So there's that. And then there's the tone, how your soul likes to sing in the world. It allows you to utilize your ego consciously and not take life personally. And so those 3 together creates this tangible or conscious connection with your own soul. And then that allows you to receive the guidance that you need from your own soul in a way that it's like, I came here to do this, and this is what I'm going to do now. And I know it, no matter what role I'm in.
Yeah, no, I mean, certainly from my personal soul languages, it was, I think, I think that's most of my life. People used to tell me I'm too serious, because that's because I think a lot. So, but they would tell me I'm too serious, too serious, too serious. And actually, when I was introduced to the energy of my tone, then which just had such a strength to it and a robustness and solidity, it's hard to put it into words what it felt like. It was like, well, that's why, because I'm not there to be the person who injects the joy and the frivolity into life. I'm there to say, see yourself as I see you, and you will see that you are so much stronger than you think you are.
Yeah.
But, and so for me, that having that was just like so liberating, because I now have permission to be myself.
Yes.
So if you I think the clues are there all the way through. I mean, as you know, I wasn't surprised when you came up with my axiom of quest. I was, however, surprised with my axiom of translation. It was like, oh god. But so it's a really interesting journey, but it allows you to do 2 things. It allows you to accept who you are, but it also allows you to open up your view of who you are and who you can be.
Oh, yeah. Like, because it's a lot of people will be resistant. I've seen it's resistant to soul language because they don't want someone to tell them who they are, but there's dying for someone to tell them who they are.
Yes.
So, And they also feel like they're going to be pigeonholed. But what I found is having my soul languages identified gave me this freedom that I had never experienced before. And also I'm like, I had a tendency to be more, I would say probably I could be more tend to the serious, like, cause I'm on the wisdom ray. So I'm going to be a little bit more serious. But that helped me to understand a lot about myself, and also helped me to not co-create again out of this. A lot of people are co-creating out of a place where they're deficient.
Yeah.
To fill a need. And really once I got my soul language identified, it was like, oh, I'm not deficient at all. I have everything I need here. I just need to start speaking, living, breathing in this vibration and all that it can offer.
Yeah. It's interesting because you said, they're not archetypes. And I think that's, for me, the archetypes are very static and contained. And this is about an energy. This is the same thing I find with the elements. And I think people connect, because I work with the elements a lot, but people connect with the elements in a very, this is how water is, this is how fire is. And actually it's not. Everybody has their own energy to those elements. How you interact with them is completely unique to you. So your fire might be ferocious and very hot, or it might be gentle and soft.
That's right.
And the same thing is, it's true with the soul languages. It's very much about your own energy to it. And when you've connected with that, you can then interpret that and bring that out into tangible form in a different, in your own way.
Yeah. And so I feel like soul language gives you a structure. It gives you the structure that your soul is connecting into your physical form through. And then how that structure is, you've been wanting to offer that structure to the world. And how you want to engage with the world through that structure. But it's not a rigid structure. It's a flexible structure. And you get to know I also see people that are doing work that's not theirs to do.
Yes.
Meaning and it just doesn't, you can see it's not the right fit. And if they just went like this, that's the work. That's their work that they came here to do. So it's interesting to see, even on the other side of becoming a practitioner, I see it more and more. I'm like, oh, that's not their work to do.
But, and it's, I think what we're talking about here is finding the ways to some extent, speed up the process, because we could go through this and you will find it out eventually, because somewhere along the line, you will find out that that's not what you're meant to do.
Right.
But this is actually just opens your eyes to what you're not meant to do and allows you to move more quickly into and focus on what you should be doing. And that certainly was, particularly with the business ones for me, that was just like, okay, so I can drop all of that.
Yeah.
I can let all of that go, because that's not what I'm here to do. And it was just like, and breathe.
And breathe now. Yeah, well, and it, because look, I can do mediumship. I can channel archangels and star beings. I can do all kinds of healing. And I was trying to define my business by those things I can do. But truthfully, mediumship was just a skill development for me. I do it. It still comes in for sessions, but it only comes in if that person's consciousness needs to be opened, because it's being limited by something that a loved one, from a relationship from a loved one who passed, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that's the structure that it comes through for me, not because I want to sit there and be a medium all day, because that would limit what I came here to do.
Yeah, because you're here to teach people to do this for themselves, basically.
Yes.
So if people want to have their consciousness expanded and be shown the path to do that, how can they get in touch with you and come and find out more about what you're doing? What's the best place to come and find you?
The best way to come and find me? my website's being redone, but you can go to the website, the current website, which is attunein.com, ATTUNEIN.com. And you can find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook group, Attune In, with Jennifer Church. You could find me there. And yeah, if you send out smoke signals, I'm not going to see them. So reach out tangibly, please.
Yeah. Well, particularly if you send them off from a very long way away, and you're not going to see them in Hawaii just at the moment either.
Oh, I'm in Kauai. We don't have any of the fog here.
Right, okay.
The skies are clear.
Okay. Yeah. It's okay. Well, thank you so much, because that's like really mind expanding and consciousness expanding.
Well, thank you, Polly, because it's always delightful to be with you and to spend time with you. And Polly can definitely see you. So yeah, for sure.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Polly.